Today I will be reviewing the Pakinpaks Demo. This video is going to be a little different because I wanted to share not just my first impressions, but also some friendly, constructive feedback for the developer. I'm not a game designer or a programmer, but I am a graphic designer and I'm an avid player of a variety of games. Design and accessibility are two of my biggest passions, so I'll naturally be talking a lot about the UI and UX, the typography, and the overall player experience that I had. But I'm also going to touch on the gameplay flow, the controls, intuitiveness, because those are also things that are just as important for making a game shine. So just a quick note, all this feedback here comes from a place of love for indie games and the desire to help them grow. My goal is to highlight what's working and offer ideas for where it could become even stronger. Pakinpaks was made in Unreal Engine by Indie Builds, and I'll be honest, I was immediately drawn to the adorable cat mascot, Bon Bon. The core concept is packing Bon Bon's luggage as they travel the world. It's a cozy puzzle game, but don't let the cuteness fool you. There's some real challenge here. The shape and properties of every item matters, and you have to think about where to place them, but Pakinpaks takes that kind of logic puzzle thinking and gives it a soft, whimsical feel that feels relaxing instead of tense. I feel that it's a type of puzzle we don't really see too often, and it's in a cute world traveling format, which is something that I could absolutely lose track of time playing, especially if it was available on the Switch. Right now it's only available on PC, but again, it's an early demo, so I'm sure there's room for expansion. There's also an optional rush mode that adds a timer for extra pressure, which is great for players who love high stakes and speedy puzzles, but personally, I'm much more of a slow and cozy player, so I stuck to the untimed mode. The main menu UI is clean, but I noticed that the fonts here feel like fairly standard defaults, which makes them feel a little disconnected from the game's overall personality. Throughout the game, especially in the dialogue, the font choices feel a bit more integrated with the characters and the vibe. So even bringing like that title font or the dialogue font into this main menu in a legible way, that could help tie the branding all together. Something I love about the main menu is this dark mode toggle. I thought it was a thoughtful touch, and I like that it affects not just the menus, but also the gameplay dialogue and every level. Personally, I stuck with the dark mode because it feels a lot easier on the eyes during longer play sessions. I also adore the little animations when you hover over menu options. They feel dynamic and fluid. Plus, I'm a sucker for menus with interactivity, so I was clicking all over, and when I clicked on Bon Bon and got a little meta welcome dialogue in that Animal Crossing style voice, I was very pleasantly surprised. The only hiccup here was that my cursor did disappear during that dialogue, which meant that I had to click through all the dialogue before I could get my cursor back and have any kind of control. I noticed this cursor issue during the tutorial and throughout the game. It's a small detail, but having that cursor visible gives the player a sense of control. There's also a customization option in the main menu, which is adorable. You can change Bon Bon's color, pattern, accessories, outfit. It doesn't directly affect gameplay, but customization adds a lot of personality and lets players feel more connected to their character, so I think there's a lot of potential here for unlockable items or seasonal outfits in the full game. The travel menu also uses that light and dark mode toggle by clicking on the desk lamp, which is a nice touch. I think the color scheme on this menu could be simplified a little for clarity. For example, the earth is currently red, which just feels a little jarring against all the blues and the greens and the rest of the interface. If the earth stayed that blue and green and the thumbtacks were red to match the other little red accents, I think the visual hierarchy here might feel a little bit more intuitive and guide players more naturally towards the place that they need to click, which is the thumbtack. Another small suggestion would be to add maybe a beginner pop-up that shows first-time players exactly where to click to start their journey. It's a tiny onboarding tweak, but it could prevent early confusion. Also, we meet a bear mascot here, so I'm guessing there will be other animal friends as we travel. If so, I am already sold. Once you enter your first destination, which is the airport, you'll be met with a change in aspect ratio. I was surprised to see a cutscene, but in a good way. It was a nice cinematic touch, and I enjoy Merle the bear thoroughly. The tutorial's notebook UI is charming, but the text at the bottom overflows the page a bit here. The handwriting script is cute, but by this point I've already seen about 4 different typefaces in the game. Generally sticking to 2 or 3 fonts keeps branding consistent and helps players subconsciously get the tone of the game. Fonts carry a lot of emotional weight. They can feel whimsical, futuristic, retro, cozy, so keeping them consistent helps you really communicate your vibe without any confusion. When you complete a pack, the notebook flips to a new page telling you to click twice or hold E to finish. I wasn't totally sure why the extra confirmation was needed. I actually caught myself clicking once, expecting it to progress. Also, after finishing a level, the completion screen uses this 1950s style font that kind of threw me off, so I wasn't really sure why this choice was made. If the intended vibe is whimsical travel, maybe a font that could tie into that theme more directly should be used throughout. Packing itself is fun and engaging. The animations and sound effects when placing objects are super satisfying, and the property tooltips are very helpful. I really like that you can still see an item's property even after placing it. Earlier in the demo, if I misplaced an item, I couldn't put it back on the notebook by left-clicking, but a recent update fixed this, which is great. But it's still worth noting that the show controls option did not explain that, so tiny improvements like that to the control tips might make a big difference in the player flow. Another mechanic that Pakinpaks offers is client requests, where you can earn stars by placing certain objects next to each other or avoiding placing specific objects together. I enjoy having clear goals in games, so I definitely enjoyed this. There are also extra challenges, like areas covered in sand where you can't put precious items. This adds a nice layer of strategy. I also appreciate the variety of 3D modeled objects, as well as the themes based on different destinations. Even the music ties into the location, which makes every level feel unique. Hints were also recently implemented into the game, updated to be limited per round, which is a nice balance between the challenge and the assistance. I initially expected Bonbon to either give a verbal cue, highlight an item, or maybe place it for me, because I found myself clicking on Bonbon several times with these control pop-ups, not realizing that I had to then click inside the pack to reveal the hint. So maybe adding a small animation or effect to guide the player could make the hints feel more satisfying and intuitive. Overall, Pakinpaks is an adorable, cozy puzzle game with a unique core mechanic that's both relaxing and brain-stimulating. It's clear there's a lot of love in the animations, the little interactive touches, and the charming mascot design, but I think with a little refinement in the typography, the UI consistency, and the onboarding, this could easily become one of those games that people can sink hours into without even noticing. Now, there's no release date yet. It is planned for 2025, but I'll be keeping an eye out, and I can't wait to see the full version.